In the pursuit of trying to accomplish all our wishes and wants on the homestead, one often sets their sights on goals which are specific, tangible, intricate pieces of the growing journey. However, while goals can guide us towards what we desire, that doesn't always equip us with the means to sustain our successes. Here at Red Ridge Farm and the Pray Just Plant podcast, you know that I advocate for a more profound approach, focusing on habit formation. Today, I want to discuss with you why, unlike goals, which are destinations, habits are the journey. They're the daily practices that over time bring us peace of mind and guide us on our growing journeys. Let's get growing. Hello, and welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast, the show that talks about growing a garden, a homestead, a healthy family, and most importantly, growing closer to God. I'm your host, Crystal Media, owner of the Red Ridge Farm Homestead, where our mission is to help women of faith find the courage to grow healthy food for their family while building a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior. If that's you, don't let the world hold you back. Pray Just Plant. Hello, fellow growers, and welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Media, and today we're going to dive into habit forming over goal making. Goal making is so important. I don't want to push that down, but it's when we find habits inside of our goals, that's when we find true success. And especially the transformation of how goals do get us to a destination, but once we reach the goal, we're done. Where habits continue the goal or continue the process into a growing journey. And you know that I am all about growing and journeys and paths and taking action and moving forward every single day. That is the whole emphasis of the purposeful growing journey that I have developed here at the Pray Just Plant podcast and at Red Ridge Farm that walks growers through the fundamental steps of creating purpose or essentially developing and growing your own food and homestead. So really quickly, this episode is for those of you that are in the just grow stage, but also for those of you that really want to define your success and really not improve it. What's the word I'm trying to come up with? My brain and words today are just not what they usually are. But the word I'm trying to go with is maybe up level or increase your success because you create a path, you create a journey. And just quickly, the stages are just grow, purposeful kitchen, purposeful home, purposeful garden, purposeful homestead, and purposeful life. If you want a description of all of those, wonder where you're at in those, I encourage you to jump down to the Purposeful Journey link down below and jump over to the journey where I have really broke apart every single of one of those stages. I've given you tips on what you can work on in those stages and really essentially what you should be looking at to see if you're ready to move on to the next one. So let's dive into a little bit more deeply about goals versus habits. And first of all, let's define those, right? Let's look at each one of those and figure out what the differences are, what the similarities are, and how we could be utilizing each one of those in our daily lives. So goals are milestones we aim to reach. They're defined by the completion, like, for example, like running a marathon or harvesting 100 pounds of vegetables, or build a chicken coop. Goals are essential for setting a direction, but inherently temporary, because once they're achieved, they require us to set new ones to continue our growth. And there's nothing wrong with setting goals. And we're going to get into that. That's so important. Setting goals is a fundamental, I think even before habits, but it's habits that continue your growth. And that's what we're all about, right? Growing food, growing on our homestead, growing for our family, but also our growth, our individual growth. So what is habits? Habits, on the other hand, are the routines we embed into our daily lives. They're ongoing actions or behaviors that we perform automatically, such as watering the garden each morning, because we know that once the sun's up, it'll be too hot. Spending time in quiet reflection, spending time with God every morning, or dedicating an hour to learning a new skill every evening, or the options are endless. But the point of a habit is that it shapes our character and our life structure and offers a steady path to our aspirations. Simple habit could be making your bed every day. What is the purpose behind that? Well, you find that when you come back into your room, you're bedroom feels more inviting, or you feel better climbing into a bed that is made than unmade. It just feels more clean or more attainable. But the other part of it is that habit sets you in a good mindset. It's an action every day that can bring you closer to and making sure that your mindset is taken care of. And that's a purpose for me of why I make my bed. Those are simple habits that you can think about, but habits are essentially ways that you can mold yourself to be doing something better for yourself. But on the other side, habits can also be something that you do that isn't good for your health or isn't good for you. Or it could be how you talk to people, or it could be a habit that you have taken up that is harmful to you. But habits, no matter what they are, is they're ingrained in you, or they're ingrained in your day, and they become a part of you. And when we want real change, when we want to see changes to our life and to our character and our structure, and we want a path to success, that's what habits are about. Now, while both can be used to get you to success, I believe it's when you set goals and then develop habits to accomplish them, do you find the true peace of mind on the homestead. Because let's face it, it's running a home, a garden, a homestead is full of things to do. It's our job to find a way to get them all done while still being relaxed enough at night to get a full night's sleep, right? To eliminate the stress, to just be able to relax. And things like habits will help you throw worry and stress out the window. In fact, you probably don't realize this, but you making your goals every year for your homestead, or every spring or every quarter, and making goals for your life is because you developed a habit of making goals for your homestead and your life. They are interconnected, but sometimes we don't make that connection. That is something you just do. You just do it. It's so ingrained in you, you just make new goals. When you accomplish one goal, you make a new one. When you accomplish the next one, you make a new one. That is a habit. But I want to help you take the goals that you make and create habits from them. That's where I think the true power comes. And I want to dive into those in just a moment, but now it is time for the tips and tricks segment of this episode, where you and I dive into a tip that I'm using currently right now here at Red Ridge Farmstead that will benefit you. This week's tip is I want to remind you to turn your compost pile. Turning your compost pile is essential to keeping it growing and decomposing. There's two types of compost piles, aerobic and aerobic. I'm not saying those things right, but one of them will compost and decay without you turning but it will take a long time. If you want to have fresh compost for this spring, go out and turn your compost, and it will reignite those microorganisms. They'll get back to work and start decomposing your compost pile even quicker. So we're talking about habits, and we're talking about goals, and maybe that they're both kind of the same thing, but I think that they can be intertwined to help you really show that habit forming may be a little bit more important than goals. So why are habits more powerful than goals? That's what we're going to be discussing now. Well, one thing that makes habits more powerful than goals is their sustainability. Once you form a habit and once you ingrain it into your daily routine, it becomes a part of you. You take less effort to maintain it. The energy needed to chase new goals is not there anymore because you already are doing the thing. Now, I'm not going to say creating a habit is easy. It actually takes you doing the thing, whatever your habit is or whatever you're choosing to do, 30 plus times to even begin for it to ingrain. And I have a whole worksheet all about helping you build habits and how to formulate them and make them easy. It's called Growing with Habits, but it essentially is how to develop habits that stick. So creating habits can create sustainability because once you've gained that habit, you now have something that you can build off from, or you can continue because it is a part of the everyday things. One of the biggest things that I have been working really hard to do here, and if you guys have been here for a while, you know that I am not a homemaker. God designed me to be one, and it is finally to this day, 20 plus years after being married to my husband, that I am finally seeing that, okay, yes, God made me one, and therefore I need to work in this area. And one of the simplest things that I have done in that area is to create habits in that area, to create that every Monday, I'm going to do paperwork because I need to get the bills figured out. I need to get all these papers filed off my desk. My desk doesn't look like a crazy mess. And every Tuesday, I also do laundry on Mondays just because that's the end of the weekend. Monday's a great day. That also gives time for my kids to have a day each to do laundry. And then Tuesday is I call mirror and dusting day, which is mirrors. I get to go into all the bathrooms and just wipe up all the surfaces, clean the mirrors, and then I dust in the major areas. But it's something simple that I can do for 15 minutes. It takes about 15 minutes a day to do all these things, but they help maintain my home. So I'm just creating a habit of every day I do 15 minutes to 20 minutes of something to improve my home. Now that changes, which gives me so much relief because I don't like doing the same thing over and over again, especially in homemaking. But I am doing the same thing over and over again because every day I have that one thing that I need to do that is the same amount of time and it is for the same thing. And you're probably wondering, okay, what does she do on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Well, Wednesday, I vacuum clean upstairs. Thursday, I sweep downstairs. Friday is either mop if I'm in a cleaning room that needs mopped, or I change my sheets because they need to be changed at least once a week. You don't even think about those things, right? But they create sustainability. And in creating that habit is the next tip. Habits also create peace of mind because engaging in habitual practices reduces the mental load of decision making and procrastination, creating a more peaceful and less stressful daily life. Isn't that one of the things that stops us from doing things is like having to choose to do it? I mean, one of the biggest things that I learned from reading the book Get Things Done by David Allen was that you just need to reduce the mental load. You need to write things down, but don't write them down in a whole list. Put them in categories. Okay, when I'm working on the computer, I'm going to work on this. When I need to do housework, I'm going to work on this. When I need to do this project, it's going to be over here. And you're just releasing that mental load. That's what habits do. When I get up in the morning, I just automatically make my bed. I automatically go and do my workout. I automatically go, I'm struggling a little bit right now with the workout because I'm just not getting to bed early enough. But that could be a habit that I need to work on. But engaging and reducing that mental load of decision making can really help reduce stress. But what about procrastination? If it becomes a habit or becomes a habit that you're working on, you're going to find cues throughout your day that just automatically happen. And when they automatically happen or you automatically think of them, you can't really procrastinate because it's like the choice has already been made. I'm doing this. I'm doing paperwork. It's Monday. I just need to do it. So where does the procrastination come in? Because I know that I have the peace of mind to relax about anything else that, I need to be doing this and I need to be doing this. It's just do your paperwork, Crystal, mark it off the list and move on to the next thing. It brings so much peace of mind. It also brings let me get this word right. Cumulative, or adding up, or bringing things together, building on top of each other. Cumulative benefits. The benefits of habits accumulate over time. Well, a goal is one-time achievement. Habits keep giving back, improving our lives day after day. One amazing way that this does it is once you build one habit, you can start building other habits on top of that habit. Having habits build on ourselves and build on themselves over time only increases your livelihood and your life. It brings more peace, and habits essentially build on themselves. They build on each other. They build on themselves. Where a goal may push you for a while. I found this to be true. I made a goal this January to pretty much zone clean my whole house like the Fly Lady does for that whole quarter. And I did really well. But now that it's the next quarter, I'm kind of like, okay, that goal's completed, but how do I keep that momentum going? Because I didn't create a habit of making sure that I'm cleaning all those rooms every week. I just had it on my to-do list to do it. And once the goal was accomplished, it's like, okay, what do I need to do next? And that's why this 3-week term, and I started it last time, was having those different days of the week, those 15, 20-minute sections to create that habit so that I do make time for cleaning every single day. And that has built up to be amazing. Even though it's just these simple 20-minute times, my house feels like I can invite somebody over anytime. My house feels comfortable. My house takes 15 to 20 minutes to pick up to be company ready. And it's because, yes, I had that big goal of bringing all my rooms up to company ready, but now I'm creating a habit to maintain them. I'm creating a habit to maintain what the first goal created, and now I'm creating a habit to maintain it through the whole year. The last tip, the last little thing that habits can do is they can create identity change. Habits have the power to change your self-image and identity. For example, when gardening becomes a daily habit, you start seeing yourself as a gardener. I've kind of explained that here with the homemaking thing, is that once I've made it a habit, once I've made time for it in my day, I am seeing myself as God sees me as a homemaker. Before I didn't see this. I saw myself as a gardener. I saw myself as a grower, as someone out on the homestead. I love being outside, but I didn't see myself as a homemaker. But by creating these habits, I'm changing my self-image. I'm changing my identity. Just like when you choose to exercise, if that's a habit that you choose every day, you start to feel confident in yourself. You start to have more energy. You start to get all these benefits from the exercise, but then you also feel good. And you feel good about yourself. So then the thoughts of yourself are a little bit better. So you have a better identity into who you are and God made you. Embedding this identity into your sense of self. Now, it's not just all about exercising, but what I'm saying is when we create fundamental change to our being, to who we are, we create a fundamental change in who we are, essentially. And that changes our self-image and essentially our identity. Now, I want to go into forming habits and how we can, some tips on how to form habits. And of course, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that guide that I have for you about forming habits. But we're going to do that in just a moment, because right now it's time for the Growing with God segment of this episode, where you and I dive into the Bible and learn more about our Lord and Savior. Welcome to the Growing with God segment. Today, we're going to be diving into a new study on the 10 Commandments. I do have a whole workbook that's going to go through each of these segments, so I will put the link to that in the show notes below. I'm also working on a teacher book so that maybe you can do this study as a group. So let's get going. So our first study on the 10 Commandments is going to be about understanding what they are. Where did they come from? Who wrote them? Who said them? So let's first read the 10 Commandments I'm going to read them from Exodus 20, and they do show up again in Deuteronomy 5 when Moses reads them or repeats them back to the Israelite people in his big speech that he gives about all of the laws and ordinances that they're supposed to follow. But these are the first time that we hear the 10 Commandments in the Bible, or the people hear the 10 Commandments. So I'm going to read them to you. Exodus 20, 1 through 17. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other God before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth below, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servants, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not get false testimony against your neighbor, You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servants, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So those are the 10 commandments. So who said them? If we look at verse 1, it says, and God spoke all these words. Now, I don't want to take that all completely out of context, so let's look at 19, just before this, and it says that the Lord told Moses in 24, Moses is up in 23, Moses is talking to God, and he tells them about them coming to the mountain, and he's bringing all the people over to Mount Sinai, and he tells them not to touch the mountain. They're just supposed to come right to the base. Then he tells Moses to go down and bring Aaron up with you, but the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. The very next verse is, then God spoke. So we see that he's not just talking to Moses on Mount Sinai. He's actually talking to all of the Israelites. And we can see this again when we look into the verses after the 10 Commandments in 18 through 20. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpets and saw the mountains in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, speak to us yourself, and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us, or we will die. So God is the one who spoke the 10 Commandments directly to the Israelites. We'll learn also that Moses is going to go back up on the altar, go back up to the top of Sinai, Mount Sinai, and God is going to write them on the tablets. We also know what happens to those tablets, right? The Israelites only spend a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, following the rules, and then they make the golden calf, and they break one of these commandments very quickly. We also see in 34:1 where the Lord says to Moses, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. Be ready in the morning and then come on to Mount Sinai. So we see here that God wrote them again, the exact words of the 10 Commandments. So they were written by God twice, because Moses threw down the tablets once, he rewrote the 10 Commandments again, and then so why were the 10 Commandments given? God tells us very directly in Deuteronomy 4. So Deuteronomy 4, as we said before, Deuteronomy is that speech that Moses is giving to the people. And just before this, he's talking about the cities of refuge. But when he gets into the introduction of the law, he reads about the 10 Commandments and what they should be done with. He actually says it in Deuteronomy 4:5 through 6. See, I have taught you decrees and laws as the Lord my God commanded me, so that you may follow them in the land you are entering to take possession of it. Observe them carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations. You will hear about all these decrees and say, surely this great nation is wise and understanding people. What other nation is so great as to have their God so near to them, the way the Lord our God is near us whenever we pray to him? So we see here that God gave these laws not only to give them a little bit direction, but to really show that the people are separate. The Israelites were to be separate. They were to be God's people. So who wrote them? Why were they written? And also who spoke them? But it's also spoke of in Deuteronomy 5:1 through 33. The commandments are given a second time. But in Deuteronomy 10:3 through 4, the 10 commandments are rested somewhere. They are put to rest or placed in a place to remind the people. So let's jump there and see where they are to rest. So I made the ark out of acacia wood and chiseled out 2 stone tablets like the first ones. I went up on the mountain with the tablets in my hands. The Lord wrote on these tablets what he had written before, the 10 commandments he had proclaimed to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly, and the Lord gave them to me. Then I came back down the mountain, and I put the tablets in the ark I had made, as the Lord commanded me, and they are there now. So in the time of Moses, and that repeats it, doesn't it? It tells us that the first ones were destroyed. It tells us that he made 2 more tablets. The Lord wrote on them again, and he wrote on them the exact 10 commandments. And they were placed in the ark to remind the people so that the people knew that they were a covenant that God gave to them. So the 10 Commandments are known as a moral law. And a moral law, if I were to go to Webster Dictionary, moral law as a noun means a general rule of right living. But especially in like the Bible and in other instances, it could also mean such a rule or group of rules conceived as universal and unchanging as having the sanction of God's will, of conscience, of man's moral nature, or of natural justice as revealed to human reason. So we see that we ourselves as humans, even if we don't look into the Bible, there is moral law. And we understand that there is a universal moral law that helps us and guides us through different situations. And a lot of it is about protecting life. It is about protecting a little bit of things. But God points to this moral law very fluently, very easily in his 10 commandments. And the 10 commandments can be seen as moral law. Now, I know that when we get into the moral law and we get discussing that, a lot of people that don't believe in God, that don't look into the Bible, use that as that just saying that I'm going to be a good person. But we know and universally know, and even Christians or people that follow God can say to that person, why are you following these things? Why are you following these exact commandments that are in the Bible, yet you are not a believer? It's because these rules are universal. God made them for all human beings because they are the protection of life. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a study. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of the 10 commandments in our next segments. But I want to encourage you to jump in and grab the workbook. I will be able to give you more verses there, and you'll be able to have places to write down your own notes. And if you even have questions, you can even contact me. But it'll just walk you through this study just a little more in depth. Because one of the focuses of this study, remember last study that we did, we talked about reflection. But this time we're going to talk about application. God gave us these commandments to influence our actions. So you should be able to find actions that you can follow and apply to your daily life. So in each of the continuing lessons, we're also going to have a little segment about application. And there's going to be, especially in the workbook, questions that will help guide you to find the actions that you can put in place to start living the 10 commandments for yourself. So a short application that you could be thinking about with this lesson is, how do you see this moral law being enacted around you? Even if it's not really in your face or prevalent, how do you see this moral law of the 10 commandments coming to life around you? Even in people that aren't Christians, even in your everyday life of yourself and others, and just take a moment to notice it and see how it helps improve everyone's life around it. We are talking about habits and goals, and how I feel here at the Red Ridge Farm that habit forming is a little more essential than goals. Now, don't get me wrong, both of them are important. In fact, as I said before, that you make goals every year because you have a habit of making goals. So a habit is for the journey. It is for the process of getting from one place to another place, but continuing it, where a goal gets you from one place to an end and you stop. Now, I want to give you some tips for forming habits for your homestead life. The first tip I have for you is start small. Choose 1 or 2 small habits to start. Making your bed each morning or spending 10 minutes in the garden can set the tone for the day. Spending 10 minutes with the Lord, having Bible time, same. But the most important thing is it doesn't have to be, I'm going to spend 2 hours with the Lord. It could be, I'm going to intentionally pray for 3 minutes with the Lord. It can be a small habit. Once you start, that's essential. Remember, we talked about you have to do it for 30 times. Once you start, then you can start building on that. So start with something small. In fact, in the worksheet that I have for you in the description down below, it talks about starting small, but also figuring out how you can build habits off habits you already have. The next tip is consistency over intensity. It's more beneficial to water your plants a little every day than to drench them once a week. You should apply this principle to your habits. You know this as a gardener, so why wouldn't it work as a habit? We don't have to be intense. Goals seem very intense to me. Like when I sat down January, which I don't really make resolution goals. In fact, I read an amazing book this year. And I'm in our community. I've been sharing with you guys. We've been doing some goal setting meetings and stuff about that book. But it was like, you need to stop making goals for the whole year and establish goals for the quarter. Like treat 12 weeks like every week is a month, and treat every year as technically 4 years or 4 quarters. And that has really helped me really organize my goals, because then I can relax and say, okay, well, I'm going to work. Like one of my big goals, I'm trying to put this in a framework that you can that my brain is trying to explain to you. But one of the big, huge goals from that book that I learned, one of the big things was that you need to make at least 3 big goals, and just like you would for the year, but make them for 12 weeks. So I did that at the beginning of the year. And my 3 goals were to zone clean my house, which I've mentioned. And that meant going into every room and bringing every room up to organized and up to company ready. And then the other was, and I broke it out, which room I was going to clean every single week. And then the other one was my health. I wanted to make sure I prioritized my health. I started exercising. I started making sure I was taking my pills, making sure I was taking care of myself, those kind of things. And then the third was to get my books that I wrote for you guys up on Amazon, so they'll be easier for you guys to find and get connection to. So I'll put the link to those in the description below. But those are my 3 big goals. I succeeded in all of them. But one of the things that I told you that I really felt disconnected with them is that, I got all my rooms. The homemaking one was the one that I'm still struggling with, because the other ones were goals that I could complete, and I could put and mark them off. And the health one is a continual. The health one was, my goal was to build habits in certain areas. So that one has continued as well. But this homemaking one, I'm really struggling with, well, how do I still keep those rooms up to company ready? So I've decided this quarter, this 3 months, is to build those habits. To build habits inside of my cleaning schedule so that I can spend time every single day staying consistent. And it's not all about this intense going into a room and stripping it down to its bare bones and then putting it back together and being really intense in it. It's about creating consistency so that I can walk into a room and just upkeep it. And then every few months, I could really get down to the bones and clean underneath the furniture and do all the big heavy lifting. But if I keep up the consistency of every day trying to do some little thing in the room that is designated for the week, then I can keep that room up to company ready without having to do the big overhaul of intensity. I hope that makes sense. The next tip that I have for you is to attach new habits to established ones. So I've already talked about this a little bit, but in that worksheet, that's what I teach you how to do. And I not only teach you how to do it, but I take you through the steps of doing that. Because when you link a new habit to something you already do regularly, like for example, after your morning coffee, you immediately spend time in the garden. That's a fun example, right? But one of the things that I have is like, once I make my bed and am completely dressed, I grab a load of laundry and go do my laundry. Now that is something that I've had to change and develop a little bit into a different avenue, because now on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's about reminding my kids. So instead of me grabbing a load of laundry on the Tuesday morning, I just grab the basket, deliver it to that said kid's room and say, hey, your laundry today. And then I can forget it for the day. But that habit is still there, and it still is attached to me leaving my room. That's like the next step. And I have like all these habits, and that's like the 5th one in a row that I do. So by attaching habits, you can establish new ones. The other thing that worksheet really emphasizes is that you need to celebrate small wins. You need to recognize and reward yourself for sticking to your habits. This reinforces your motivation and commitment. Yes, goals need to be recognized and celebrated. Habits need to be too. Sometimes they become so ingrained in us that we don't even think about it, but accomplishing a habit and really ingraining it in you is a huge step forward. And to build a habit, you need to reward yourself for doing it over and over because it's only consistency that will create a habit. So reward yourself. And the last tip that I have for you is be patient and kind to yourself. Forming new habits takes time. If you miss a day, don't dwell on it, acknowledge it, learn from it, and continue forward. What I like to do, and it's in that book, Getting Things Done, is I like to do a weekly review. Then I can look at and say, okay, well, why didn't I get that habit done? Why didn't I get to that this week? Well, maybe it was because everybody got sick. That's something that's out of my control. Therefore, that's not my fault. Is it because I decided to sit in front of the TV and binge watch YouTube for a while? That is in my control, and I need to see that and say, okay, Crystal, this is why you didn't get it done. So there's so much more to building habits than goals. Building a habit is going to create continual change, where a goal only creates change. So if you want continual change on your homestead and you want to create a path of purpose and a journey, then continual change is what you want. Now, I did mention before that I wanted to talk about how you could change a goal into a habit. And I think I've kind of talked about that a little bit with my cleaning thing. But the purpose of that is like when you set a goal, one of the biggest things that I felt when one of the goals that I had a few years ago was that I felt very rushed in the morning to get ready and get things done, making sure that I was making breakfast for everybody, getting everybody started for school. Yes, we homeschool, but I felt very rushed. And I felt rushed because I didn't feel like I had time for myself to take care of myself. So one of the goals that I decided to do was to take time every morning to take care of myself. And no, it didn't need to be a lot of time, but I still, in accomplishing that goal, I felt still very rushed. So then I decided, okay, I need something to build and help me have more time in the morning. So what I decided to do, because the one thing that took me the longest was picking out my clothes because I was not awake, I was tired, I didn't know what I wanted to wear. So that took time. So I decided that I was going to establish the habit of picking out my clothes and laying them out for myself every night. And the change that made in my goal of taking care of myself in the morning was amazing. Not only did I not have to spend time and brain energy deciding what I needed to wear, I just got to get up, grab my clothes, go to the bathroom, take care of all the things that I wanted to take care of, and I was out of there in the time that I needed. By creating that habit before in the evening, it created and helped me establish my goals of taking care of myself later. And there's other goals that you can do to take care of yourself as well. I mean, maybe you have the goal to take care of yourself, but you want to exercise. Well, then you need to establish a routine and a habit of exercise. So I hope all that really ties into itself and helps you see that while setting goals is important for defining what we want to achieve, and building habits is crucial for making continuous progress towards those achievements and beyond. In the realm of homesteading and personal growth, habits are the daily step that lead us to fulfilling, productive life. Here at Red Ridge Farm, we encourage you to look beyond your goals and focus on the habits that will bring you closer to the life you envision for yourself and your family. If you're ready to transform your life through powerful habits, join our Purposeful Growing journey, where we delve deeper into cultivating practices that align with your homesteading and personal growth goals. Together, we can achieve more than just goals. We can transform our daily lives into rich tapestry of growing and fulfillment. The quickest way to get into the community, to get joined into the Purposeful Growing journey, is just grab that worksheet that will walk you through forming goals. It's an amazing asset. So I want to thank you for joining me here at the Pray Just Plant podcast. And as always, that if you're new here, welcome to the Red Ridge Farm Fellowship of Fellow Growers. And don't let the world hold you back. Pray Just Plant.